Okay, so the next movie was released on May 19th, 1997, and it is called The Lost World Jurassic Park. Not Jurassic Park The Lost World, as you might assume a sequel would be. Like, why would you call it that? Anyway, so the synopsis. Within 100 miles of the setting of the first film from 1993, an island is discovered to have a living dinosaur population from Jurassic Park, which it's basically, I think it's billed as like they were breeding the dinosaurs at this island and bringing them. Even though the first movie shows them hatching on the fucking Jurassic Park island. It's like, oh my god. And multiple scientists and organizations go to this island to either research or exploit these creatures, depending on who you are. As I say, like, most people would agree that Jurassic Park from 1993 is a spectacularly well done movie. It's another one of those ones that, to me, it was very scary as a kid, but it was so well done. They had all these great effects, very realistic and practical.
There's a lot of practical effects, which is why it holds up when you go back and watch it.
It does, because you don't see like all of these cartoonish CGI dinosaurs. They build these like multiple ton animatronic dinosaurs that look very well done. I mean, fucking awesome. That being said, I'm glad that we chose this movie because I think it would have been easy to choose like Jurassic Park 3 or something like that. But like, no, Steven Spielberg came back for this one.
So
and it's like,
I have a note about that.
Okay, go, let's share. Let's hear it.
So my note, and by the way, I have 3 pages of notes on this movie.
Oh my god, okay.
Yes, there's no way Steven Spielberg directed this, and if he did, there's no way he was awake while doing so.
Yes, that's fair.
Like, was it him or was it his staff, his intern?
Right.
It's like, there's no way.
So I forgot to mention the cast. We have quite a few noteworthy people. So we got Jeff Goldblum, who this movie is focused on. He was a secondary, like, supporting character in the first one. And I think that was probably, like, the most fundamental misstep of this movie, is to make him the star, and all of a sudden, like, he's got drama, he's got this daughter, he's got all this extra, and it's just kind of like
all the baggage.
What we loved about him from the first movie was he was just some guy that was telling Richard Attenborough what a fucking idiot he was for like bringing these dinosaurs back. Well, so you've got Jeff Goldblum, Julianne Moore, who I absolutely adore, and
I love Julianne. I didn't even remember she was in this.
Right, and I had forgotten too, because I always think like of one of the things I saw her in first was like Hannibal, the Silence of the Lambs prequel. Me
too.
Yeah. So it was like
she's one of my all-time favorite actors. I love Julianne
she's
Moore.
Phenomenal. And on top of that, you've got Vince Vaughn. This is like his first bigger, like high-profile Hollywood movie after Swingers.
Post Rudy.
They don't even use Vince Vaughn for what you should use Vince Vaughn for. Like he's not very funny. He doesn't.
He is Vince Vaughn-y though. Like he
is
in his deliveries and stuff. Like when they asked him what he expected to see when they first see the dinosaur, he was like animals. Maybe big iguanas.
Right. Yes.
And he delivers it in a very Vince Vaughn way.
Yes, I would say I just felt like they could have done so much more. Like bring something more to this movie than what they did. Julianne Moore's character fucking pisses me off left and right in this movie.
Yeah.
Especially like the very beginning. She's like approaching this like baby Stegosaurus or something. Yeah. She has like no situational awareness of the fact that she is like a threat to this baby and its parents are like right there ready to attack her. And she like just fucking ignores everybody and just does what she wants to do. And it's like, oh, fuck off. Like, God damn it, Julianne Moore. You were supposed to be better. I was supposed to want to love you in this movie. Yes. And they ruined that.
She keeps doing dumb things, too. Like when they're hiding in the shed, trying to hide from the raptors or whatever's after them, and she's, like, trying to dig out from the other side of the shed. It's like 2 feet away. As she's digging, I'm pretty sure the raptor's just going to come around the back and, like, eat them as they should stay inside. And sure enough, it does. And it's like, I saw it coming. Why didn't you see it coming, Julianne Moore? And then she freaks out and she's holding like a 20-pound wrench the size of a baseball bat, and it doesn't occur to her to like smack it in the head with it.
Right. Oh my God. So much shit like that. Ian Malcolm is Jeff Goldblum's character. We were kind of introduced to his personal life in the beginning of the movie. He's got this daughter, and she just kind of stows away in one of the RV, the research RV, I guess you call it. And it's like she stows away, and then she reveals herself once they get to this island, and they're like, oh fuck, we've got to get you out of here.
She made breakfast for everyone.
Right. How nice, But the whole premise of this movie being, he goes to see... Why can't I... Is it Dr. Hammond is Richard Attenborough's...
Yeah.
I think so. And so he goes to see him at the beginning of this movie, and Richard Attenborough lays down all of this exposition. Well, here, let me just retcon everything you know about the first movie and just kind of pull the rug out from under that, and like just all of a sudden we're going to say that there was this other island where we were breeding the dinosaurs and we were hauling them in, which I don't know why on earth that would ever be a better idea than just keeping it all contained to one island. But anyway, so it's like basically it's decided, oh, okay, so we've got to go to this island and figure out how these dinosaurs are surviving. They weren't supposed to live this long and blah, blah, blah. It's insulting to anybody who has seen the first movie and is like honestly expected to forget so much stuff. Like major scenes, major events of the first one. Watching sequels do this, it's probably like the worst thing a sequel can do. There's another movie it might be the next movie, I can't remember, but anyway, it's basically like if you're doing this retconning where you're rewriting the story of the first one, where you might not actually be changing the events, but you're like, oh hey, this was going on behind the scenes and you didn't see it in the first one, but we're showing it to you now for the second one because we're out of good ideas. I hadn't seen this since it came, like I saw it on video at a birthday party when it came out on video. It was a slumber party or something like that. Like it was 10 kids and we're all fucking watching this movie. I recognized even at the time that it was not particularly great, but obviously it's still that little kid thing where it's just like, it's a movie. I'm not going to be as critical about it, but... This
was definitely a movie that I went in thinking, was this really as bad as I remember it being 25 years ago? And it was worse than I remember it being. Just all throughout it, from just bad writing, as you've talked about at length, to like, whereas a movie like Terminator 2, the tension was all in the right place from the right source, all that kind of stuff. This one was the exact opposite. From the first time you see the T-Rex, the real enemy that's creating the tension is not the T-Rex. They hit the RV and it's a matter of physics. They're dangling off the cliff. Can they get out of there before it topples off? The T-Rexes wander away. They're not even there anymore for a bit. So instead of being afraid of the dinosaurs, and the dinosaurs are chasing you and they're going to eat you and whatever, it's just like this thing that's hanging off a cliff in the dark that somehow every time a bunch of stuff cascades down around them, they don't even get bumped by anything, and it's like it's like they didn't even try.
Right.
I mean, when you talk about like feeling like a movie was just mailed in to make $100 million, like at one point I wrote down, in an age before AI writing, it really feels like AI scripted this whole thing. Like it just generated a bunch of not random but calculated whatever tropes.
Yes.
And it actually makes me wonder if this was the best writers could come up with.
Mm-hmm.
Do they deserve to keep their jobs from AI replacing them?
Right.
Like, there are some amazing writers out there. They clearly had nothing to do with this movie.
Right.
It's that bad.
The RV, like you're talking about, the first thing I thought in watching this movie, and I remembered virtually nothing about this movie, I'm watching it and I'm like, gosh, did they really park that RV like 2 feet from a cliff?
Right?
Was that really their plan? Like, they didn't see any issue with that. They didn't see any potential for added danger and, the possibility of something happening. No, it's just like, let's park this fucking RV near the cliff to manufacture some tension later and just go that way. And like, the whole thing we haven't mentioned yet is this movie gets bogged down by the fact that, like, all of a sudden these men come up. They were the ones I was referring to that were like planning to exploit these dinosaurs. They got all this machinery and equipment. They're trying to capture these dinosaurs and they're going to take them to a zoo on the mainland or something. there wasn't really a villain other than the T-Rexes, as you mentioned. In the first one, there was Newman, who was, but he doing shisty stuff, but he was just a secondary.
He was more of a
meddling.
plot device.
Yes, he was
that led to the power outage and chaos. Right, he was a plot device.
I say Newman. I mean Newman. Wayne Knight, of course, but he's Wayne. He's Newman for sure. So like, one thing I don't want to forget to mention is this movie I could have sworn was fucking over with, and I checked the little progress bar, and I'm like, how is there so much time left in this movie? It feels like they're wrapping things up. All of a sudden, there's this giant tacked on plot where they've taken these dinosaurs back to San Diego.
And that was all I remembered from it, was that last part. And I had forgotten over the years that comes after the movie should have ended.
Right.
And it takes a movie from terrible to even worse.
Right. And so I was reading up on that. Basically, it sounds like what happened was Steven Spielberg had the idea for these dinosaurs to be on the mainland in San Diego, interacting with the public and stuff. He wanted to make it a separate movie, like the third installment, but he also realized that he probably didn't want to return for a third installment to direct. So he just tacked it on to the end of this one. An already really not well executed story is just thrown off even more by this like weird false ending, and all of a sudden you've got like this other thing that's happening where it's just like, okay, why are we doing this now? Like, this doesn't feel like the same movie. Not that I was that attached to what the movie was before.
How much of it was... Because, like, I've never read any of the Michael Crichton books that they were based on, but there's also the Lost World book. There was a sequel book that this is based on, and I don't know how much of that was in the book versus how much of that they added in the screenplay.
Yeah,
but, I mean, it feels tacked on, though. It feels like it doesn't belong. So kind of back to, like, the first one was great because the dinosaurs were the villain, so to speak. The dinosaurs were the source of tension, the thing they're trying to get away from. In this one, it's this other group of completely unnecessary characters. You know, talking about unnecessary characters in a sequel. Most of the new characters in this one, other than needing to round out the cast because half the people got eaten in the last one. And I got to think that, like, Sam Neill and what's her name?
Laura Dern.
Yeah. If there was a script, and I'm not entirely convinced yet that there was a script before they all showed up to start shooting.
Right. Probably
like,
not.
Did they read it and they were like, we don't need to be a part of this?
Yes.
Because I'm not convinced that they didn't, like, that the script didn't, for whenever Jeff Goldblum's character had a line, it didn't just say Ian Malcolm and then Jeff Goldblum does his thing. Right? Like, did he actually have scripted lines, or was it just, you do your thing, Jeff? Do your Jeff Goldblum thing.
Just say what feels right in this moment through the lens of a Jeff Goldblum pronunciation of things. Aren't Sam Neill and Laura Dern in the third one?
I'm not even sure I ever saw the third one.
I think they are.
The second one was so bad.
I never actually saw it, I never watched the third one because I remember when they made it, and I thought to myself, wasn't that second one like absolute dog shit? Why are they making another one? Yeah. And I think that the two of them returned. No, it was
direct to video rather.
No, it was theatrical, I think, and it was like, I thought that they came back for it, and from what I heard about that one, I don't know if you would call it worse. It's just like a different kind of worse, or a different kind of bad, I should say. If they wouldn't have signed on for that third one, I would concede what you're saying, that they might have looked at it and said it was too bad to actually be a part of. But if they were a part of that third movie, and it is as bad as people say it was, they just kind of like couldn't be as choosy later in their careers, and they were like, we need some money, we know they'll pay us a bunch to come back or whatever.
So we talked about the terrible script, too many unnecessary characters, the wrong thing is the bad guys, cliches left and right, which again makes me feel like it was just mailed in. The first time we see the bald guy in that warehouse as they're setting up to go, in my head I nicknamed him Lunch Meat, because it was like, there's no way this guy doesn't get eaten. It's like if you were to have AI generate a character that's going to get eaten, that's the thing that it would come up with, is that guy to a T. And sure enough, he's the first one that gets eaten. I think he was the first one that got eaten.
I will say, like, as far as Steven Spielberg is concerned, I read some stuff about kind of, like, he wasn't, like, necessarily, like, trashing this movie, but he admitted that there was... He doesn't usually care for, outside of the Indiana Jones movies, doing sequels in general, because he feels like he goes into them and he has too much confidence and he's too sure of himself, and he, like, with this particular movie... It's very clear that he just kind of phoned in a lot more stuff than he would have ever done with an original
movie.
Right. And it's like,
right
the first movie,
bat.
there's no way he gave it the kind of care he gave that first movie. And
even, I mean, the cold open, right, with the family on the beach, the super rich family that's on the abandoned beach with their, you know, whole crew of butlers and whatever. The little girl wanders into the trees and she sees a little tiny dinosaur comes out and she says, "Are you a bird or something?" Like, has this little girl never seen a fucking bird in her life? like
so
who
true.
saw who?
Oh,
if
God.
he was truly behind the camera, how did he not go, "Time out, guys, hang on. Can we, like, replace the word bird with iguana or
a reptile of any sort,
lizard, any lizard,
like anything." Oh my God!
There's no way he was awake. If he was actually on set, there's no way he was awake.
Yeah. Right. It was funny because, like, that, like, I remember that sticking out as, like, it really set the tone for this rewatch for me.
Yeah.
Of, like, I'm watching this movie and I'm like, well, I remember it being pretty bad. Is it really that bad? And it's like, okay, we're on some different island that's clearly going to have dinosaurs on it. There's no way it doesn't. And she says, "Are you like a bird or something?" And it's like, no, like, no, like, there's no fucking way. I just, it's bad writing. It's bad across the board.
Every time a dinosaur chomps someone, there's, like, this potato chip crunch sound followed by, like, a tidal wave of blood that just gushes down. You know?
Yes.
Like, it's just,
God.
The effects are worse. The sound effects are worse.
All of what they put into the first movie for the sound design of, like, what, you know, like, there were, like, 10 different fucking animals that made up the sound of a T-Rex.
Yeah.
And, like, the growl, the breathing, the, you know, like, all this stuff. Yeah. None of that was here. It was literally like you watch those old radio shows where the guys are, like, hitting things and, you know, like, just trying to make noise.
There's a guy over on a separate microphone with a bag of potato chips, and whenever they get...
It's so dumb. Oh my God.
Stupid. So stupid. We can't move on without getting to the San Diego part, right? Because that was the only part of the movie that I remember, and chiefly the reason why I remember this movie being absolutely terrible and a complete train wreck. So, like, my train of thought once the boat crashes, which itself was super stupid, right? This boat crash. Yes. So I'm just going to run through my train of thought, my stream of conscious as I'm watching this was first. Has How This Made covered this movie yet? Because they should.
They should absolutely do it, yeah.
How the fuck do they lose track of a T-Rex in downtown San Diego? Were there no police coverage? I mean, by the way, one of the biggest naval installations is, you know, right there. So no one's paying attention to this. And this giant, you know, 30-foot lizard, terrifying thing that, like, makes the ground shake as it walks, goes sprinting through downtown, everything's crashing into each other, and then he just sneaks away into a quiet neighborhood. Nobody sees it. Nobody knows what's going on.
Right.
Has anyone considered contacting the Navy about this situation? You know, they've got a whole fleet of helicopters and stuff right there.
Yes.
Killing the dog was unnecessary. This is the dumbest thing I've ever seen. Literally the only thing I remember from the movie. Took the movie from bad to worse. Then finally, when they get it back to the boat, which, by the way, is this the same boat that crashed? In which case, it crashed, and what's the point of getting it back to this boat? Is this a different boat? What's the plan here? Maybe I missed it. Maybe I was just so lost in, like, the ridiculousness of it. But then, how does this T-Rex, whose footfalls are so massive that on land it makes water jiggle and it makes jello molds jiggle and people can hear it and feel it in their gut.
Yes.
Now it's on this metal hollow ship floating on water and it tiptoes, sneaks up on this guy without making a sound.
Yes.
Like, again, going back to, like, talk about being mailed in and just this, like, AI just puked out this generic, ridiculous, terrible script.
And I want to say, like, what you're talking about specifically right now, I noticed throughout, I want to say throughout the movie, but especially in the parts where you're talking about, it was like, yeah, this T-Rex was shaking the earth. You could hear it coming a mile away in the first one. And then all of a sudden, when the plot dictates that this giant dinosaur needs to sneak up on them, it can sneak up on them, and it's just there, and it's like, oh my god, I didn't see that there. Like, are you fucking kidding me?
But by the way, how did the T-Rex manage to eat the guy in the pilot house who was steering the boat? How'd he get up there?
I don't fucking know. I totally agree. The final sequence regarding going to San Diego, being in San Diego, that is where a bad movie becomes horrible. Like, it just becomes really fucking bad.
To me, I mean, spoiler alert, this is where it went from a D to an F for me. It was the San Diego part. It was just like, come on. But thank God, all they really had to do to stop this rampaging Tyrannosaurus Rex was shoot it with a tranquilizer. And Julianne Moore had to do it, by the way. None of the trained, rifle marksmen, anything.
No.
The scientist that was there just... Turns out she just had to shoot it with a tranquilizer. Then it goes to sleep and we're all good.
Right. It's clearly like one of those screenplays where it's like they're writing it and they're like, well, I've kind of backed myself into a corner here. What's the easiest way for us to get out of this? It ends up
that doesn't preclude Jurassic Park 3.
It's so bad. Yeah. Right.
We can't shoot it with a bazooka, so...
Right.
So if I'm forced to find a silver lining, Peter Stormare is in it. He plays one of the bad guys. He is officially the creepiest actor of all time, and he's at his creepiest in the 3 lines that he had.
Yes.
Peter Stormare does his thing. I always love seeing that guy on screen.
Absolutely.
And the daughter, at one point, when we first meet her, when he's trying to send her to the babysitter or her aunt's house or wherever she was supposed to go, she says she doesn't even have Sega. She's such a troglodyte. I thought that was a hilarious line.
Yeah.
But it wasn't enough to save it, so no. I give it an F.
Surprise, surprise, we yet again agree on another movie, so I gave it an F. As you also alluded to, it was much, much worse than I remembered it being.
Yeah,
and
even worse than I
had a pretty bad memory of it. I remember you were talking, you had texted me, because you hadn't watched it yet, and you said something, well... Oh, I forgot Julianne Moore was in this and Vince Vaughn. So, and I texted you immediately. Yeah, and I texted you and I said, I will caution you about your sliver of hope about this movie because it's not going to redeem this movie.
They did not save it.
Yeah. Because, I was pissed because it's like I couldn't find it on streaming anywhere. I had to pay $4 to rent it. And I was like...
I at least had $1.50 virtual credit from getting like an Amazon day delivery kind of thing, where like if you combine them and let them all arrive 2 days later than normal, you get $1.50. So I only paid $2.50 for it.
There you go. You bested me. But yeah, this one is one of the all-time letdown sequels, I would say. I don't know if it is. I don't know if it is necessarily the worst because there are a lot of bad sequels out there.
All the things that I mentioned about T2 that I described it as like making it such a perfect sequel. This is the opposite in every single way. Like the stakes aren't higher. The hero and villain have not elevated. They're actually worse or lacking completely. Tons of new characters that aren't relevant. New scope that isn't relevant or better. The twist is dog shit. Not even a twist. It's just like you said, never mind everything else you knew about the first movie. We're just going to make up some new stuff that just...
I think it makes it worse in my mind. I had to look it up. I couldn't remember if Spielberg came back for this one. And I thought, there's no way he came back because it was so bad.
I thought at least it would say Steven Spielberg and someone. And we can be like, okay, clearly it was that other person. They just tagged his name to it.
Yeah.
If he was actually on set directing this actively, this might be his low point.
Right. You know what's also crazy, and this is a little bit of an aside, I think I looked up when I was covering the first one, he did Schindler's List and the first Jurassic Park in the same year. Wow. And a contingency of him making Jurassic Park was that they would let him make Schindler's List. And like basically they were like, you need to make this movie for us and we will give you your your Schindler's List movie, and the fact that he was able to make two all-time great movies.
Yeah.
And he couldn't even do it with... I don't even know if he was doing anything else.
Was Saving Private Ryan the same studio?
Oh, studio,
because
I don't know.
I think Saving Private Ryan was like, what, 98? Something like that?
Yeah, it would have been right after this.
Is there a chance that they said, you can do Saving Private Ryan, but you have to come back and do Jurassic Park 2?
Right. You could do your little war movie, but we want you to get this for sure cash cow taken care of for us. Fucking awful.
Or did he accidentally sign on for 3 Jurassic Parks and like he did the old, I'm going to make the second one so bad that they let me out of the contract for the third one?
There has to be some explanation.
I know musicians who have done that, like with their record contracts. They purposely made a terrible album so that they could get out of their contract and not have to make 2 more for that.
I think we've beaten this one to death. It's really taken... And I mean, there's plenty more to come to talk about. So we'll call
the next one's going to be just as bad.
Yes, the next one is. There might be more with the next one. It's possible.
I again have 3 pages of notes, so apparently I take all the notes. The worse it is, the more notes I take.
Well, it is. There's so much more to complain about.